And we are back. Welcome to the Soapbox, where people who work, volunteer, and care about recovery tell us who they are and what they're most passionate about. My name is Rich Jones, RN, and I represent Parenting Your Child in Recovery.com and my home website, secondstarts.com. That's number two, NDSTARTS.com. My special guest today is Jessica Frey, but more affectionately known as Jess Marie. Okay. Jess is a mom, a podcaster, a motivational speaker, a life coach, a grief coach, and an author. Okay. And she encourages those around her to show up unapologetically. So, Jess, thank you for being here. Thank you for being with me.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to talk with you today.
Great, great. We're going to really get into it. First thing I always do is tell everybody, let me hear the Cliff Notes version of who Jess is, the whole thing around what you do, how you got here. Talk to us.
All right. So like you said, I am a mom. I'm a podcast host. I am a life coach and a grief coach and an aspiring author. I'm working on a book currently. I got started doing this work because I learned on my own how important it is to talk about the things that are difficult to talk about, the things that people are afraid or ashamed to talk about because of the stigmas and the views from the outside world. I want every single person that I either have on my podcast, that I work with in, coaching, or even just that I interact with on a day-to-day basis, to know that they aren't alone in anything that they're going through, and that they can also get through whatever they might be going through and come out on the other side. I myself have experienced a lot of difficult, challenging, traumatic experiences in my life. And it's really important to be able to have conversations with people about the things that you experience because, it helps you, but it also helps other people as well. So that's the Cliff Notes version of who I am.
Okay. Tell me about real brief before we get into the soapbox points. Tell me about unapologetic life coaching. Tell me about a little bit about the business. Just a little bit. Tell us.
Yeah. So I started that business specifically to work with women, but I will work with anyone. I say women more because I am a woman, so I understand women. I know what they go through. We experience a lot of the same things, but I obviously would work with anyone who came to me and, wanted support. But I really love to help people learn to love themselves again. I went through a long period in my life where I didn't love myself. I didn't like what I saw in the mirror, but I didn't like how I felt inside either. And it wasn't a fun feeling. So if I can help one person in the world feel better about themselves, learn to love themselves again, kind of switch the mindset that they have, because a lot of us do have a negative mindset, and it's difficult to kind of switch our mindset, especially when we're comfortable in that, because that's what we're used to. It's what we've been doing for so long. So I love to, help people learn to love themselves again, incorporate gratitude practices in their lives, because I think gratitude is so important. I always, my friends make fun of me sometimes because no matter what's going on in my life or in the world, I always manage to find something, like one little nugget of gratitude in whatever's going on, because, it's difficult sometimes, but it is there. And, I also I want people to just be kind to themselves. I say that at the end of my podcast, be kind to yourselves, be kind to each other. It's just, kindness makes a huge difference in the world. So we can all learn to do a little bit more of that. I think it would be great.
Okay, great. Okay, quick break. Just to remind everybody, if you're a parent, mentor, or a practitioner who loves, cares, or works with the young adults, either at risk, in trouble, or maybe even currently in treatment, parenting your child in recovery.com. You can go there for a non-clinical option that, it escalates and multiplies the results that you're getting with your evidence-based treatments. Okay, Jess, I'm going to put you up on the soapbox now. I'm going to talk about you and I want to drag out your theory and your mindset, for everybody that's watching this. First thing I want you to embrace, expand on for me. You write, embracing the mess and show up as you are. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, I think a lot of times in life, we try to show up in the world how we think other people want us to show up.
Mhm.
And again, speaking from my own personal experience, I did that for a very long time. I, didn't show up fully as myself. And it's difficult to do that every day. It's
Mhm.
difficult to pretend that you're someone that you're not. So I encourage people to embrace who they are, even the messy parts of themselves. I say it all the time. I embrace the mess because the mess is kind of it makes us who we are. It makes us special. It makes us unique, and it's nothing to be ashamed of. We all have messes. You hear the
Yeah.
phrase, "Everyone has skeletons in their closets." That's true, and it's true that we're messy sometimes.
Yeah.
And I think there's no need to feel shame in the mess because we're all human. None of us are perfect and none of us are better than the next person. So
Mhm.
that's
I
what
would
that means.
imagine I would imagine that when you meet up with someone and talk to them, that's one of the first things you have to deal with is getting them to relax around you and, and have them understand that you understand that
Yeah.
they're messy, Gotta be
Yeah.
difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It can be because, people are afraid sometimes to admit the mess that's going on. And sometimes, and everybody's mess is different. Sometimes it
Mhm.
might be, a tiny little situation that we're dealing with. And something it might be, sometimes it might be something much larger, but they're all important things and they're not things that we just should ignore because if you ignore them, they're going to turn into real big messes. And then it's going to be a bigger problem than, what could have
Exactly.
just been resolved or accepted, when it was a little bit smaller.
Okay. Just talk to me about, and I saw this on your website,
Mhm.
w- inner magic. Talk to me about how you see that. What's our inner magic?
So to me, that means we all have the power inside of us to make the changes that we need to make. I
Mhm.
think again, a lot of times people look to the outside to fix us. I need somebody else to come fix this for me. And somebody could give you all the tools in the world. They could give you a step-by-step, guide of how to do whatever the thing is that you're trying to do. But at the end of the day, the only person who can do the work is you, and you have
Mhm.
everything that you need inside of you to do just that.
Mhm. I like that. It reminds me something I've said to some of the parents is, and some of them are a little older and they understand. The Wizard of Oz told
Uh-huh.
Dorothy to click her heels. You know, you're always home. You
Yeah.
just gotta kind of remember you're
Yep.
always there. So, okay,
Yeah.
just talk to me about in your mind what being vulnerable means and how can your people use that, to excel
Mhm. I
vulnerability.
think, yeah, vulnerability, again, I think we have been taught for so long that to be vulnerable makes us weak, but it doesn't. It makes us strong. It's a superpower to be vulnerable, to be able to share and talk about, the difficult things, the darkest parts of ourselves. That takes a lot of bravery and a lot of courage. And I wish
Yeah.
that more people understood that. It's not easy to talk about those things, but the more we do it, the less scary it becomes, the easier it becomes. And I think it's important for everybody to be vulnerable.
Okay, all right. Is that something that the people that you work with, and I'm imagining, have a great difficulty with vulnerability, being that they're in either messy or grieving situations? You
Yeah,
know?
it is. And again, like I think it's difficult for anyone to start something like that. When they've been keeping things inside for so long or not talking about things or not being vulnerable, it's always difficult to step out of that.
Mhm.
But,
Right.
you have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Mhm.
And that's a lot of what, this work is becoming used to things that you aren't used to before. Because in order to get comfortable there, you have to get out of what you were already comfortable with. And that takes time. It takes practice. It takes commitment. It's not something that you're just going to wake up one day and be like, all right, I'm going to do this. And then it's done and over with. It's
Right.
time consuming. You have to put in the effort and really be committed to making those changes because again, nobody's going to do it for you. You have to do it yourself.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense to me. I know this is a big part of what you do, but talk to me about grieving in general,
Yes,
it's a lot. So talk to me about it. How
it
do you
is.
handle it and help people handle it? Mhm.
Grief is, I mean, and anybody who has experienced any kind of loss understands that grief is complicated, it's unpredictable. There is no easy way to deal with grief. Um, and I think that's probably the most important thing that people need to understand. It's not easy, and there's also no right or wrong way to do it. I lost my younger sister very unexpectedly in August of 2024. And that experience taught me a lot about grief that I didn't really recognize before. And I really learned, and I'm still learning now on this journey, about the importance of talking about our grief. This is a topic that isn't spoken about nearly enough. And it
Mhm.
is something that we all will experience at some point in our lives, whether it's, the death of someone we love, the loss of a relationship, a job, our future lives, like what we thought our life was going to look like, and it doesn't look like that. Grief is a part of so much of our lives, and the fact that we don't talk about it, it's concerning because we need to be able to learn again to talk about. It's a difficult thing. It makes people uncomfortable, but
Mhm.
we have to be able to talk about these things because we're all going to experience it at some point in our lives. And I don't necessarily think that you can teach someone how to grieve, but being able to talk about the tools that, might help you.
Mhm.
Again, they might not help everyone because what helps me might not help you, but giving people options and letting them know that just because you are doing it this way and someone else is doing it this way doesn't mean it's the wrong way to be doing it.
Okay. All right, Jess, you touched on this earlier, but I want you to expand on it because it's something that I believe in also, gratitude.
Mhm.
Just talk
Yes.
more about that. I think to me, it's a lot. And I try to pass that on to people when I'm talking to them. But, tell me how you incorporate that into, how you help people. You know?
Yes. So every morning when I get up, I have a little gratitude journal that I write in.
Mm.
And I started this practice several years ago. I actually owe it to my cousin and his wife because they used to do this daily video on Facebook Live every day. They did it for a year straight. It was called the Daily Gig, and gig stood for gratitude, inspiration, and goal.
Okay.
And they would both name something they were grateful for. They would like give a quote that inspired them or something that they saw, on TV, in a book, whatever that inspired them. And then they would set a goal for the day. And I started tuning in and watching these videos, and I really enjoyed it. And then I started writing these things down every morning, and I still do it to this day. And just waking up in the morning and starting the day thinking about something, even one little, it doesn't have to be some big grand thing, it could be something simple that you're grateful for. I find myself a lot of times during the winter here where I live,
Mhm.
if we get like a big snowstorm and my neighbor plows the driveway for me, I will include that in my gratitude when I'm writing in the morning. Thank you. I'm glad that he plowed the driveway for me. So just little things to get us to focus on the fact that no matter what else is going on in the world, no matter how bad things are, there is always something to be grateful for. And for me, that has helped me see that there are more things aside from, just those tiny little things that we might write about in the journal every morning. And I think recognizing gratitude also helps bring more things into your life to be grateful for.
Mhm.
I think I believe firmly in what you focus on is what you attract. So if you're
Right.
constantly, focused on the bad things and all the negative stuff that's happening, that's what you're going to notice. That's what's going to be drawn to you. But if you switch that and focus on the positives and, the things that are happening good, you're going to find more of that flowing to you.
Okay, that's good. I want to ask you a question. This is my own curiosity.
Okay.
What what gave you I don't want to use the word idea, but what gave you the spark to begin this journey of helping other people with guilt? How did that start? And how did it lead you here?
Yeah. So the podcast came first. And that started a few years ago after the Super Bowl that Snoop Dogg performed in.
Okay.
And there were all of those jokes after the Super Bowl about 50 Cent and the weight that he had gained. And people
Okay.
were sharing these memes left and right all over social media, and everybody's laughing and it's funny. And then I had a whole other separate group of friends that were sharing posts like, 50 Cent isn't going to see these jokes that you're making about his weight, but do you know who will? Your mom, cousin, friend, aunt, sister, whoever,
Okay.
who struggles with body image and food issues and things like that. And those posts really resonated with me because I was diagnosed with bulimia several years ago. And it really, like, people don't realize the impact that they have when they post things online. They don't realize the reach that it can have and, the impact that it can have on people, especially people who are suffering with something,
Mhm.
and particularly those who are suffering in silence. So I made a very vulnerable post on social media and shared a lot of things about myself that, my close group of friends knew about me, but a lot of people, even family members, that were friends with me on Facebook, probably didn't know about me. And I just expected to maybe get a couple likes on it and, keep it moving. But
Mhm.
people commented on that post. They were sending me messages. They were texting me when I saw them out in the community. They were thanking me for sharing all of that stuff about myself and being vulnerable. And I was like,
Mhm.
I was just sharing my experience. Like, I didn't expect it to take off the
Right.
way that it did. But in that moment, I had wanted to start a podcast for a long time. I just didn't know what I wanted it to be on. But in
Okay.
that moment, when I got that reaction, I knew that that's what I needed to talk about on the podcast. And it grew into me starting the life coaching because I feel like in my everyday life, these are things that I do anyway with the people that I love, my friends, my family members. People come to me for advice. They come to me for support and encouragement. And I was like, doing it anyway. I might as well start like really doing it. So that's how that all transpired.
Oh, okay. And how did you get to, and this is a more of a tender question, but
Mhm.
since we're sharing,
Yeah.
how did you get to what is your link to grief, if it's not too personal?
No, it's not
Because it
personal at
takes a
all.
special understanding of grief. I mean, you gotta go
Mhm.
through having it and then being able to examine it, and
Yeah.
break it down and dissect it. So how did you work through that?
Yeah, that was something that I never saw myself doing. I never could have imagined, calling myself a grief coach and helping people who were
Right.
grieving. But, the universe has a funny way of putting us on paths in life that we didn't see ourselves on. And it was after my sister passed away that I realized how much support is needed when it comes to grieving, especially when it comes to sibling loss. I don't think that that's something that people truly understand. I mean, every loss is difficult, every loss is
Right.
important, but there's something about the connection you have with your sibling that is completely different than any other relationship you have in your life. And I experienced it firsthand. I've lost grandparents before. I've lost, other relatives. I've lost close friends of mine. And this was completely different. This situation changed me in a way that I could have never imagined. And I really had to get to learn, and I'm still learning now, and I'll probably be learning for the rest of my life to get to know this new version of me that I didn't ask for. I didn't ask for this journey. I didn't ask to be introduced to this new version of me, but here I am. And, it's difficult, for sure. It's not an easy journey to be on, but again, even in this journey, which is probably the most difficult journey I've been on in my life, I have
Okay.
learned so much, and there is so much that I'm grateful for in this journey, as difficult as it is.
Oh, very understood. Okay. Uh, take a quick break here. Remind everybody, A, Jess's website on there. So if she said anything, and I'm sure we have anything that sparks your imagination, make sure you tune into that as quickly as possible and learn more about what she has to offer. If you are a parent, mentor, or practitioner who loves or cares or works with a young adult at risk, in trouble, or possibly in treatment, parentingyourchildinrecovery.com is a non-clinical option that accelerates and multiplies the results of almost all of your evidence-based treatments and modalities. Okay, Jess, I want to get into the projects. You talked a little bit about the podcast, but I want you to talk a little bit more
Mhm.
about it. Tell us about the format. Things about what would interest them, how and why they should
Mhm.
tune in. Let's talk about the podcast and see if we can get some people to
Yeah.
tune in.
Of course. So again, the podcast focuses on topics that typically have stigmas attached to them.
Yeah.
There's some fun episodes mixed in there too, but
Okay.
a lot of them are, topics that are more difficult to talk about. And I have people on who have gone through experiences themselves so they can talk about their experience, talk about the things that they did to help get them through it, and then share where they are now in their lives. And again, it's to give people hope that they can get through whatever they're going through, but to also let people know that they're not alone in what they're going through. And I typically have like the same set of questions that I ask all of my guests. Sometimes they'll vary depending on the topic, but
Okay.
because the podcast focuses on stigmas, we talk a lot about the stigmas, and what you want people to come away from the conversation with if you listen to that particular episode.
Okay. You said some of them are fun. What did the fun ones sound like? You said.
I mean, I've interviewed a couple of my friends who are like DJs and here locally. So those are more, I mean, like there's still stigmas related to that, to that profession, but it was, kind of a more fun, uplifting episode. A lot of the interviews are a little heavier because they are, difficult topics that we're
Right.
talking about. But,
Right.
it's important to still have fun in life, even when there's difficult things going on. I did an episode one time with someone and we talked about grief. And a lot of the conversations about grief are an important reminder too of like the beauty in it and, finding the good in situations like that. So
Mhm.
yeah.
That sounds good. You talked about a book. Uh,
Yes.
Give us a little some inside scoop on the thought processes and things you're thinking about, how laying it out and what's its goals and objectives. Give
Yeah.
us a little inside scoop. What's happening here?
Sure, sure. So I am currently working on a book, and it's related to grieving. It stems from my sister passing away because I really wanted to share my experience in it, and again to remind people that grieving is messy. There's no perfect way to do it, and to let people know that they're not alone in the grieving process. I talk about in the book what it's like to be a big sister. I talk about the experience from when, the time that I got the phone call that my sister had passed away to, the funeral and the celebration of life. And then all, the things that have happened since then, adjusting to, life without my sister and kind of tools a little bit that people can use to help
Okay.
them. I know we all know about the 5 stages of grief, which, I say this all the time when I talk about grief on podcasts. I don't want to like shade the person who created those because we do all go through them. But I think a
Yeah.
lot of us have a misconception about that process and that, once you've gone through one stage, you just move on to the next one. And when you're done with all 5, you're done grieving. And anyone who is grieving knows that that couldn't be further from truth.
Yeah.
So I have kind of developed a framework of sorts to deal with grief and, help people kind of move through that journey. I mean, there's no getting over
Okay.
grief. It's with you forever. So I think having tools that we can use and knowing that like we can use them forever is extremely important when it comes to grieving.
Okay. All right. Um, I see that you had a sibling loss group. Give us a little preview of that, and maybe talk about that. So in case somebody was interested in something like that, to let them know what's going on in that group.
Yeah. So we meet virtually every other Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And it's a safe place for people to show up and grieve and talk about their siblings. And, sometimes the meetings are very emotional. There's lots of tears. But again, we just had a meeting a couple weeks ago and we were laughing, the 3 of us that were on the call, and, sharing fun stories about our siblings. And it's really a beautiful space because there's no judgment there. We all understand each other. We know the pain that the other people on the call are feeling. We can relate to one another. And again, not to sound like a broken record, but I think there are a lot of misconceptions about grieving, and you can come there and say whatever is on your mind and your heart, and no one is going to judge you, and chances are pretty good that we all understand what you're feeling and thinking.
Okay, that's when, every other Tuesday?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, we'll make sure we get that in the show notes, so everybody can get a beat on that.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, listen, I got a couple of things on the end I wanted to just play in here because I
Sure.
got them just from reviewing the website and thinking about what we'd be talking about. Embrace your quirkiness. Tell me about that. I like that. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think quirkiness makes us different from one another. We all kind of have our little things that make us special and different. And a lot of times, I think we are afraid to let those parts of us, be out there in the world because we're embarrassed, or, we think someone might not like us, or they're going to judge us because of the way we look or the way we dress or the way we talk or whatever the case may be. And I am a firm believer in those are the things that make us beautiful and special and important, because we're not like anybody else because of those things. So, I love when people might have like a something that other people might think is weird, and I'm like, I love that you love that. Like, tell me more about that, because our differences are what make us amazing and set us apart from other people. If we were all the same, we all acted the same, we all looked the same, life would be pretty boring. So yeah, I think everyone should embrace their quirkiness.
It sounds good. The other thing, and I like this one, probably even steal some of this one. Fearless discovery. Talk to me about that, because that says a lot to me. But
yeah, and that goes back to embracing who you are as a person, because it takes work to do that. And it can be scary to kind of break down the walls and the different layers of who we are as humans. And there is beauty and power in getting to know who we really are, and kind of doing the work, but also digging and digging through the mess essentially to get to who we are. Because once we do that, it opens up a whole world of amazing possibilities for us. When we really discover who we are, and realize that we're here for a reason, and that we're on the path that we're on for a reason. So it's not easy, and sometimes it's a long process. I mean, I think we learn every day who we are. We're growing, we're healing every day. None of those things ever stop. If they stop, then it's the end. But I think there's bravery in that too, and getting to know who you really are, and learning who you are, and learning to love who you are in the process.
Okay, very good. Getting ready to go here, but before I go, I got one question, and then we'll close.
Okay.
Favorite Tupac song?
Oh, my favorite Tupac song. I mean, I love Dear Mama. I love that song so much. I've always loved that song. Yeah. That's probably one of my favorites. But I also, oh my gosh, this is terrible. I can hear the song playing in my head right now, and I can't think of the name of it.
I surprised you with that one.
Changes. That's the other one. I love that song too.
All right.
Yes.
Excellent. So, okay. And in case any of you want to know why I just jumped off and answered that, when you get in contact with her and to help work through some issues that you may have for someone you know or love has, you can ask her yourself. All right. So in closing, Jess, I want to thank you for coming on with me and sharing, what you've shared with us. I think is vitally important, and the way you come about it, I think is vitally important. So again, I want to thank you so much for being here and spending some time with us today. Okay. I mean,
yes, thank you so much for having me.
All right. So for myself, Second Stars Parenting Child Recovery, and Jess, I want to always, in closing, we want you to get out there and help somebody get better, help somebody stay better, and most importantly, let's help somebody be better. Thank you and bye.